When Jochen Mass made his Formula One debut in 1973, he raced against legends such as Jackie Stewart, Francois Cevert and Denny Hulme. When he ended his career, he was teammate to Michael Schumacher in the Sauber Mercedes sports car team. Because Jochen spanned the generations like few others in the history of the sport, and he's my guest this week. Welcome to Beyond the Grid with me, Tom Clarkson. Jochen and I first met at Goodwood in the UK. He was entertaining some guests, and I remember being struck by how articulate he was and how much racing sense he demonstrated. And why shouldn't he? He raced alongside many of the sport's greats. He was teammate to Emerson, Fittipaldi and James Hunt at McLaren, and Jackie Ickx, Stefan Belloff and Hans Stuck at Porsche. And he mentored the Mercedes juniors Michael Schumacher, Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Karl Wendlinger as well. But for all of those great memories, there were sad times as well. Jochen won the shortened Spanish Grand Prix in 1975, in which 4 members of the crowd were killed. And it was his car that Gilles Villeneuve touched when he crashed at Zolder in 1982.
The greatest unhappiness imaginable occurred before race day. In the closing stages of the last practice session for today's Belgian Grand Prix, motor racing and the world lost a much-loved and truly courageous sportsman when Gilles Villeneuve, fighting to improve his starting grid position, hit the March car of Jochen Mass in a 150 miles an hour accident which must intensify the need to reduce cornering speeds and improve Grand Prix safety. Villeneuve's Ferrari was completely shattered and the driver hurled against the catch fencing. Tragically, heart massage and specialist treatment in Louvain failed to save his life.
I knew him well. I knew his kids, I knew his wife, and we were often together in Monaco. And I liked him a lot and so on. But the way it happened, you look in the mirror and you see the car coming in the back, and then you move over to the right to give the fast inside lane, which is normal, it's the usual race lane. But then he was already on the right, and he just gently tapped my wheels, and he flew past me. Rear wheel, front wheel, and I thought, it happened next to me all the time. I mean, I was sort of ghosting underneath, looking at him being flung out of the car with the back plate of his chassis, from his seat. And then he flew across the road into the catch fencing. So I stopped and ran across, and I could see his big eyes. It was terrible. It was so utterly terrible that I thought, what can you do? What can you do? I didn't feel guilty necessarily, but I thought, why take risks like that? He did. And that's what basically everybody said too, because the situation with Pironi was such that he couldn't face Pironi being quicker than he was. And he was quicker then in that moment. And so I still raced the next day. I still raced. My engine blew in exactly the same spot where the accident happened. And it was most ironic. And there I sat during the race and I watched, all the marks. And, I knew it was very, very strange. And I felt terrible. I really did. But, it's a race accident. You have to see it like that.
We've had a big accident on the back straight. That is Mario Baldi, but Jochen Mass is off as well, I think. Jochen Mass has gone off in the March. I think the 2 cars touched.
A few races later, the French Grand Prix in Le Castellet, when Baldi put his front wheel between my right wheels, and I flipped on the road doing 288.
And there, right further down, is Mass's car, and goodness me, it's gone through the catch fencing, over the Armco barrier. It's right in the spectator area, and it's on fire.
10th lap in the race, full tanks, and I flew, and the rollover bar was pushed in the first time it hit the road, and it caught fire because of that. The tank was pushed in, and So I ended up flying over. I got these knocks on the head. My helmet was broken right down to the thing. And I was flying end over end over the guardrail, over this service road, into the spectators, burning. I was wrapped in the chicken wire. And luckily I was the right way around. Had I been with the head down, I would have been decapitated, sliding over this concrete, because there was nothing anymore to protect you. And so on. So there I was, and it got hot, and I thought, this is going to be tight. And of course you feel that you can't get out. And then it was flooded by a foam gun, luckily 40 meters up, quickly came down and flooded it in foam. And my wife sitting at home on TV, listening to the commentator saying that he's dead, he can't survive that. But then I was, got out of the car and I had a pang on the shoulder, but I had nothing. I was blackened from the fire and all that, my overall, my helmet, what was left of it. But other than that, I had no injuries.
That's Jochen Mass being led away. Jochen Mass shrugging his shoulders, waving his hands, and I think he is very, very lucky to be alive.
While I flew, I had this strange sensation of, your life is going in slow motion, past you, and it was beautiful. It sounds ridiculous. It was beautiful. I saw the boys and my life and as such, and it was all nice. But at the same moment, I felt there's someone pointing at you. So you may as well give in to Formula One, because the team was not very good and so on. So it didn't make any sense to continue. So that was it. And then I quit Formula One.
And do you think Gilles' accident had helped contribute to your decision to quit Formula One?
Oh, absolutely. It was definitely the point. Had it not happened, perhaps I would have continued driving. Gilles' accident, which sort of compounded the whole attitude of negativism, in racing, how it can be sometimes.
Why didn't you retire from all forms of racing? Because driving at Le Mans at 250, that's not slow, that's dangerous.
I didn't think that's dangerous. I just thought driving in a bad team in Formula One, and by not being able to win anymore, or to at least to get into the points, or to get into a better sort of situation within the group, you're just an also run always in the back. I didn't feel this was worth it. The risks were too high. So that's why I didn't do it anymore. And it was a quick decision then. And I thought, there was Gilles. And I feel I just jumped off the barrow just here and then with so much luck that you can't always rely on that. It was too much luck, but you needed to survive all that without really particular injuries. So you don't have to push your luck.
We'll get back to Jochen right after this. So we all know that a VPN protects your privacy and security online, right? But just in case some of you out there don't know, you can also use a VPN to access your Netflix account or watch TV if you happen to find yourself in a different country and can't wait to find out what's happening on your favourite show. And using a tool like ExpressVPN is simple. All you have to do is sign up, log in, choose your virtual location out of the near 100 countries available, hit the connect button, and that's you sorted. You can sit back and watch TV just as if you're at home in your own living room. And it's really useful when I'm on the road, as all I need is my laptop at the ready. Not that I actually have much time to complete a box set these days. Anyway, there's plenty of drama in Formula One this season to keep me entertained, and roll on this weekend's Turkish Grand Prix for the next episode. There are hundreds of VPNs available out there, but ExpressVPN is a standout because it's ridiculously fast. You can stream everything in HD quality with no buffering or lag, and it's available on your phone, laptop, tablet, and even your TV. Just use the link expressvpn.com/grid, and you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. That's expressvpn.com/grid. Jochen walked away from the wreckage of his burning car in France and also walked away from Formula One. But he continued racing in sports cars, eventually becoming a Le Mans winner and a mentor to Michael Schumacher. Jochen certainly had plenty of experience to draw on when advising his young countryman, because his own racing career is full of twists, turns, tragedy, and larger-than-life teammates.
I was, first time when I drove a single-seater, I was nearly 25. I was 24. And that was 1971. So I drove Super V and then Formula 3 in the UK and so on. And then I did Formula 3, Formula 2 already the following year and so on. And then, of course, I was in Formula 1 already in 73. I got into this group of Formula 1 guys, the Graham Hill and Jackie Stewart, of course, and Bonnier and, and Peter Revson and Denny Hulme and all these guys. And, of course, Mike Hailwood, who was one of my favorites, and Peter Gethin and so on. Fantastic people, wonderful guys. And, as a young sort of race driver, I was not young in years, but I was a young race driver. And to be suddenly amongst them and be one of them, this was really nice.
105 races, a win, 8 podiums. How do you sum it all up?
I think I made a mistake from the word go, driving for John Surtees and so on. Okay, this was 1973, half a year, and then 74. And then, of course, 74, I quit because there were too many things wrong with the car. Not design-wise, but the way it was built and so on. So I lost total faith in this sort of setup. It was too small. He had no money. I became vice champion in Formula 2, which was nice in his cars.
You made your Grand Prix debut at Silverstone 1973, and you got caught up in that first lap crash triggered by Jody Scheckter. Can you just describe what it was like when all the mayhem was going on around you?
It was a very brief thing going through my head, and I thought, if that's Formula 1, it's shit. I don't like it. Please, don't. That's exactly what it was. I didn't hurt myself. I crashed into Mike Hailwood's right rear end, and he got stuck in the pit wall and so on. So all 3 cars of Surtees were write-offs. And that was a bit of a drama for him, of course. And I thought, if that's Formula 1, as I just mentioned, I don't like it. But then the next one then was Nürburgring for me.
You were always brilliant at the Nordschleife. Jackie Stewart used to call it the green hell. What was your attitude towards that track?
I think the green hell is a misnomer because it was not a hell at all. It was damn nice. It was a beautiful circuit, and it was the most exciting circuit. You could call it a green hell, or you could have called it a green hell earlier on when it was just hedges, keeping the car sort of at line, in the corners, but before they built the guardrails and all that. But to me, you drove different. When you have a circuit like this, you're terribly aware of its inherent dangers, obviously, and you drive it, with a certain conscience, being aware of how dangerous it might be if you crash and so on. So you drive, instead of 99% or 100%, you probably drive 90. You have to adapt to the track and not change the circuits to adapt to the cars. And that's a pity what we do nowadays. We shouldn't have that. We should have more demanding tracks, which are also for the driver more challenging.
You joined McLaren full-time in 1975. Yeah. Can you describe what life was like alongside Emerson Fittipaldi?
Well, let's say alongside Teddy Mayer first. So when I came to Le Castellet, was the first time that I tested for the Marlboro team. And he looked at me and he said, "Are you fit?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Sure." He said, "Okay, we run a lap." Me with my beautiful boots on, sort of with fairly heeled boots and so on. So he was in his sneakers, and we ran a whole lap. And, I kept up with him quite easily and so on. And he accepted it. And he said, "Okay, so I can see you're fit enough," and silly things like that.
That was your first test.
Yeah. Teddy was peculiar when it came to things like that. But look, with Emerson was the big important figure in the team. You know, it was very important for Marlboro, Philip Morris, and so on. So everything was focused on him. I sort of tagged along quite happily. They liked me because, you know, I'm such a likable guy. Haha. But, you know, you are number two. You are definitely number two. And therefore, you have to make the best of it and see how you can establish yourself next to your teammate. And Emerson was a very good, let's say, politician as well. And so on. So, of course, he pulled everything towards him. And I could only learn. That's what my opinion was then. You know, I could only learn. I did look at him, and not that I wanted to emulate him exactly. I just wanted to be as quick as he was, or maybe if it's sometimes a bit quicker than I was occasionally.
Well, how quick was he, Jochen?
Oh, he was very quick. He was very, very cautious too, and he didn't like to take risks. So when it sometimes got a bit like in Barcelona, or also at the Nürburgring where we had problems with the tires and so on, he opted not to run. So he said, no, I don't want to take these risks. So he did that. And, you know, I didn't feel the danger as much as he did. Maybe a lack of experience, I don't know what. But, yeah, no, I was also safety conscious because also of Jackie Stewart, because he was then the head of the Formula One safety committee, if you like. And he had very good ideas. So I tagged along with that. But I also realized if you want to do it, you have to accept certain risks. Otherwise, you don't need to do it. Forget about it. Walk away. But, you know, you just take it and don't overdo the risky bit. You have your fellow drivers, right, left, and center, and ahead of you and behind you, or whatever. So they're nice guys. You don't want to endanger anybody. You know, sort of just take it as safe as you can. So it sounds a bit simple, but that's basically what you should feel like.
Couple of races in 75 I'd love to ask you about. First up, Brazil. You finish on the podium alongside Emo, and Carlos Pache wins the race.
I think the picture of that particular scene you just described, I still have. And that describes it best. You know, you can see this sort of perfectly, you know, contented smile on your face, you know, and you think, great. You know, what took Nicky sort of in one of the later stages. And I had to force my way past him a little bit because, of course, he defended himself. So I bumped with my front wheel against his side pod between his left wheels. And I did this very consciously. And he was not aware of it in that moment. And I could see him going, this is something, you know, which is harmless. But nevertheless, you put your point, you make your point and say, all right, here I am. So don't take me as a floppy here.
And did you realise at that race just how big Emo was, particularly at home in Brazil?
Of course, you know, Emerson was the biggest possible figure in Formula One then, especially in Brazil. I mean, Carlos Pache was great, and that he won the race was wonderful, you know, for him. But it didn't mean that Emerson lost a little bit in the public perception. Quite the contrary. He was always the big boy. Later, Nelson Piquet, of course, he overtook him, perhaps. But no, Emerson was very much the big boy. I mean, don't forget he was very young when he went to England and so on, and he was the youngest world champion. And then so it was quite remarkable. Now he was a good guy to have in the team and sort of to hone your skills on him a little bit and see what you can do.
Now, Spain 75, the race that you win, but it was a tragic race. 4 spectators were killed. Emerson didn't start that race because he had concerns about safety. Did you think about not starting?
Yes, but for different, you know, I had a different idea because they all wanted to strike and go on strike and things like that. And I said, look, we're in Franco, Spain. I don't think it's a very bright idea. So I think we should drive, but we should demonstratively drive slowly. You start, but you do it gently, and so on. You drive around like a Corso almost, just to make the point. The flag dropped and they went off, and 2 Ferraris had each other off and all that. So it was an immediately proper race. And I was going around, in the first group, and said, what did we just talk about? What did we agree on? What did we agree on? And why does nobody give a damn, about all this and so on? Meanwhile, you have to see also the point, the teams did the best to get the balls with a nut in the back secured so it wouldn't fall out so easily. In the beginning, there were just balls sticking in, but no nuts holding the screws together and so on. So it was quite a strange thing. The track is beautiful.
Montjuic Park.
Yeah, Montjuic is great. Super nice. And, I liked it a lot, actually. It was, in a certain way, it was actually more interesting than Monaco. Perhaps a little more dangerous, but it was a bloody good track. And that I won it was just, it didn't faze me much, quite honestly, because, I drove through the rubble. There were Stommelen and Patrese, yellow flags, of course. And then Jackie went past me, Jackie Ickx. And I quickly followed him, and I thought, quickly overtake him just in case. So that's why I won the race. But to me, there was not really a win, obviously. But, statistically, yes, it was a victory. But, I'm so much more would have wanted to win the Nürburgring in 75 already, when we had this problem with the tires. They didn't last a lap if you really pushed it hard. So they blew. And I had a crash, not heavy one, but a light crash in practice with a blown tire, like many other guys too. And they flew in new tires from the States for the Sunday race. And they put 3 new ones on. I mean, they were all new, but this was the old type, the front right. But I didn't know. First lap coming down, and I was lying fourth. And I thought I'm going to win that because I knew the guys and I knew I would be quicker. That's what I thought. And the bottom, my front right tire delaminated completely at 280, flap, flap, flap. And of course, then you have a left-hander coming up. Of course, then you crash into the guardrail sideways, and you go along the guardrail and you shoot across the road where it turns right into Ardenau. Anyway, and there I was climbing out of my broken car, and the few spectators standing around said, "Idiot, can't you go slow in the first lap?" They didn't know what had happened, of course. And I said,
Very frustrating.
Yeah, got back to the pits. I said, "How did that tire get onto my car?" And they said, "No idea." And that was drama. I knew I would have won that race. That was 75. Nürburgring, 76. This is another story.
There's so much to ask you about 76, actually, Jochen. So Emerson leaves McLaren to go and do his own thing with Kopasuka, and in comes James Hunt. How serious was James?
James, let's say the way he grew in racing. In Formula 3, I was quicker. That's why I got his seat, and they ousted him because he crashed too many cars. Formula 2, he was not quicker either. And then he got into this fortunate situation. Harvey Postlethwaite, great designer. Alexander Heskes, fantastic team boss, if you like. Politically well-versed, and, he was, and so on. And then, of course, with Bubbles Horsley, being the team manager, one-car team. So he was the focus point, the center point of everybody, for everybody. So that was great. And then, of course, with the connections he had, he got good engines too, and he won a Grand Prix, which was fabulous. It's good for Harvey Postlethwaite, great designer, very, very good, and so on. So, and that, of course, made James already almost larger than life. And then when he got the offer to drive for McLaren, I thought, there's my number 2 place, my number 2 situation cemented, in concrete, and so on. I cannot get out of that one with the blondie locks, being number 1, and so on. Okay. nothing wrong with that. I mean, he was good then. Of course, he was very focused and this and that. But he was not the wonder boy they made him out to be later. And I'm not saying that now with hindsight or whatever, but he wasn't. I knew it then. He had all the premier treatment, and in 76 then, Cosworth made 3 engines for 3 teams, which had, believe it or not, Keith Duckworth told me that in the 90s, they had 70 horsepower more, not 17, but 70. And that, of course, was from mid-season onwards, suddenly these 3 cars was Andretti with the Lotus, of course, Tyrrell, Scheckter, and James with the McLaren. To me, when I heard it later, I thought, damn it. But then I understood, it was for a while, until then, I was as strong as James in some races. So it's forever some political things which matter, and there's nothing you can do about it.
About James, I mean, he has this playboy image. Is it justified?
Of course, it's absolutely justified. He was a playboy. He was downright silly sometimes. And I told him so. I said, James, calm down a bit. I said, why do you do that? You're provokingly silly sometimes, I liked him, obviously, but, I sometimes was painful to watch him doing certain things. I said, why? Why are you so obnoxious sometimes in your approach to others? Just be a bit nicer. And with girls, hopeless.
Did he lead you astray, Jochen?
No, he didn't lead me astray, no. He couldn't. He couldn't do that. I mean, I was okay myself, so I didn't worry too much about that. It was just sometimes, that he became very abrasive towards girls. And I said, it's a pity, James, don't do that, please. They do their job, you do your job, and so on. And, just help them. It would be nice. But anyway. Look.
Well, let's talk about Nürburgring 76, because you started on slicks and had a half a minute lead after 2 laps. Now, what made you start on slicks when everyone else was on wets?
Intuition. No, we had the safety car coming back, and Herbert Linge, who drove it. I called him over, please. I said, how wet is it? He said, like here. So I said, no puddles, no. Only foxhole, there's a bit of water running, so there you might have a problem. But other than that, I said, it's dry from where we're on, Hohe 8, high 8, which is halfway mark. And I said, it's completely dry. Yes, completely dry. I said, until we're Antoniusbuche, which is fairly close again to start and finish. And so I called my guys and I said, put on slicks. I said, are you crazy? Slicks, everybody's on rain tires. I said, put on slicks, please. Just, let's not talk about it. Just put on slicks. And we did, and it was perfect. Damn it, it was nice. And of course, don't forget, by the time the other ones then felt, or they did 2 laps, some of them did 3, because they felt already uneasy, and I thought, damn it, that race a write-off. We may as well just, plow on with it. But my tires then were warm. We didn't have tire warmers in those days. So I had beautiful warm slicks, and I could, drive beautifully on that ready drying groove. I felt really good, and I thought, thank God, I'm going to win the last Grand Prix, hopefully, if nothing goes wrong with the engine or whatever. The last Grand Prix at the Nordschleife, and of course, finally, the German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Oh, what a bliss. Red flags everywhere. I thought, what on earth? I thought, what's wrong now? So I got back to the pits. I said, what's the red flags for? I didn't know what had happened behind me, obviously. And I said, there was a crash. And I said, who? Niki Lauda. I said, oh, damn, is he okay? They said, touch and go. I said, oh, no. Anyway, and then, what you say, then, of course, you can't argue anything. Niki was against the circuit, and then happened to him, of all the things, and so on. But it was also playing into Bernie's court, because he didn't like the Nürburgring anymore, because it became too expensive for the television coverage and. So it was, even though he liked the track as such, of course, but, some guys didn't like it, but most guys did like it. So it's a great shame.
How difficult was it to take the restart, knowing that Nicky was in a critical condition?
No problem at all. You just take it. And, it's just normal racing. And we also knew that Nicky, I heard, speaking to the doctors at the ring. So, of course, they were in contact. Nicky was transported down to Mannheim for the special clinic for burn wounds. And so on, his main problem was the lung being sort of for the extinguished powder and things like that, which did hurt him most. So that was the biggest danger he faced. But he had no great breakages or whatever. So burn wounds in the head, which is, dramatic enough. So I went actually after the racing was done, I went down with Marlene to the hospital and we saw the doctors. We couldn't see Nicky, was in the intensive care. And so on, we spoke to them at length and so on, and they explained. So I was in contact with them all the time, could see his progress and so on. But, when we then restarted and we drove, it was ironic because we had James, Scheckter, and Andretti. I think Scheckter was leading, James was second. Anyway, in Carousel, Andretti coming out of it with the Lotus, he missed the gear. And I pulled alongside him, and then we went up, bumping the wheels a little bit, and I spun around. Didn't do any harm, but of course quite some cars got through before I could continue. And so on, so I had to re-overtake him. I finished third at the end. But this was already then with the stronger engines. So it was a pity. Third place, okay. I stood there bedraggled and quite frustrated, on the rostrum at the end. And I thought, Nicky's accident, the end of the ring. And it was a sad story, really. It was nothing wonderful.
One more race I'd like to ask you from your McLaren days was Canada 77. Now, you and James Hunt, teammates, you come together and James is taken out of the race. He then punches a marshal, and then I think, isn't he sort of waving his fist at you every time you drive past for every lap after that? What did he actually say to you after the race?
Nothing whatsoever. He didn't even raise his fist. Honestly, he didn't shake it to me. He sort of shook it behind me so I couldn't see it. Because he knew that he made a mistake. Because I was on the left and I backed off to give him the fast lane. And I should have perhaps just pointed more. But he followed me, and what happened was he must have looked in his mirror to see where Andretti was, whether he would make an attempt as well to go out or so. And so I'm sure he looked in his mirror, and then I backed off and he hit me in the back and he spun around. It's no drama, really, but he never uttered a word towards me after the race. He never called me guilty or whatever, never ever, because he knew I wasn't. I mean, it sounds a bit, but I wasn't really, giving him any, because first I gave him a chance by slowing down Andretti for James to get past him, to get past Andretti, so suddenly he wasn't in the lead. Don't forget, I was a lap behind, with a strong engine and so on. So it was quite funny. But it was a pity, of course. But as we know, the outcome of that season. No, 77, sorry. Yeah, no, that was not good.
How frustrated were you not to continue with McLaren, or did it reach its natural end at the end of 77?
Very little we could do. I mean, a lot of things changed to the team. Gordon Koppuk was not designing anymore the new car. So the M26 was not such a wonderful machine. It was weight distribution and with the radiator in front and things like that. So it didn't really match the situation. And that James still won one race was mainly because of his motor. It was basically that which gave them still some respite in the team. So the good years with McLaren were really in the M23. a funny thing once in South Africa with the M23 was James in 76. I was 19th, 20th in practice, in qualifying. We still had 1 hour qualifying on Friday and Saturday. And so I was totally frustrated. I said, the car is never the same, guys. And I said, yeah, sure. What was her name yesterday and so on, giving me a sort of a funny look. I said, guys, there is something wrong with the car. It can't be, damn it. From one corner to the next in the back, it's never the same. And then Alistair pulled the car back and the mechanics, a little bit to give room for James, who came into the pits. And Alistair said, I found something. I said, what? He said, I'm not going to tell you. So I thought, I couldn't really think what he found. Maybe he saw something or whatever. Anyway, so I went out, third fastest time within the lap and so on. So I came in and said, what was it, damn it? He said, well, the gurney flap was only screwed on at the outer ends, and the middle section was flapping like that. It was not flapping gracefully, but just enough to swing around, and that changed the car's behavior, the handling.
Great insight, though, into how tiny little things can make a big difference to performance, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be right back with Jochen, who was a good runner, in just a moment, because I'm calling all runners and those of you looking to start clocking up those miles. Now, as you probably already know, getting your stride and technique right is an important part of embarking on a new running regime. But one thing that shouldn't be overlooked is your footwear. Step in the new Fresh Foam 1080 V10 from New Balance. These breathable and plush running shoes combine soft foam with energetic rebound suitable for casual and hardcore runners alike, and they wrap your feet in comfort with every step you take. The soft-fitting knit upper and ultra heel give you a stylish look, while the full-length Fresh Foam midsole is made to be fresh for every run, helping you to feel confident and comfortable as you go the distance. Regardless of whether you're training for an event or simply trying to smash your own personal best, the 1080 V10 from New Balance, the best ride for the road. Visit newbalance.com to check them out for yourself. That's newbalance.com. But for now, let's get back to our chat with Jochen. Now, Jochen, I want to just look at 1978. You moved to ATS. Not a good car. Robin Hurd leaves early in the year. And then you have this crash in testing at Silverstone. You hurt yourself, you break your leg, and it's while you're in hospital that you are offered a Williams seat for 79. And for those people listening who aren't aware, that is, of course, when Williams started to dominate Formula One. So my question to you right now, with about 40 years to reflect on it, is why did you turn Frank down for 79?
I know pretty good why I did that, not to feel stupid about it. Frank had only one car in the races in those days. And he said, I've got the okay from the Saudis that we can have two cars next year, but I don't have it in writing yet. Jochen, it's as good as a guarantee, but I still can't give it to you in writing. So I opted to drive for Arrows. They asked me to drive for them. And of course, Riccardo Patrese was very good with the car. Sometimes he was a very young boy, and I thought, if he's that quick in it, so we have a chance to win a race with these things. Instead of, even Alan Jones came along and said, Jochen, drive for us, be my teammate. He said, it's going to be fantastic. The car is really good. I knew I made a mistake, but, you still do it. And it's really a great pity. Now, with hindsight, of course, it's, it's something I think, how could I have been so silly? But I was. So what do you do?
You can only do what you think's right at the time, I suppose. How did you feel when they started winning in 79? I feel like I'm rubbing salt into the wound. I don't mean to, but it's an interesting question, I think.
Yeah. We still have to talk about this ATS deal, because after McLaren, to drive for ATS was, especially with hindsight, the stupidest thing you could possibly do. But of course, I didn't know at the time, because Günther Schmidt, the owner, he had bought the whole March setup, mechanics, Robin Herd, and all the bits and pieces of the car. And I thought, great. With Robin, I really liked him. He was a good guy. And we did quite a lot in Formula 2 and so on. So he worked well with me and he liked me. And because, I was also, I don't know, maybe you heard something different from him, but no. We got on well and so on. So in any case, but after the first race already in Argentina, they all left. The whole team left. And Robin said, Jochen, I can't work with this man. He is nuts. I said, yeah, I know, but don't leave me alone. Don't leave me stranded now without a team. I only signed because of you guys, which I did. And then, of course, I had to, it was such a pity. And, when the accident happened, I broke a lot more than just the leg. I broke the femur, I broke the knee, it was badly smashed, the tibia, and so on. So a very good doctor, unfortunately, Mr. Kopp in Northampton Hospital, and lovely guys. And the whole team was very, very good. I had a busted lung, and I had, luckily, I don't think, I didn't break ribs, but I broke a lot of stuff on the lift because, you feel it, but it doesn't hurt. It's sort of the engine flew away, luckily. It didn't catch fire.
Jochen, what happened in the accident at Silverstone? What caused it?
What caused it was on the straight where the rear radius rod, the uniball joint snapped. So then the wheel, of course, went to the left. And then I went out and I hit the sleepers on the left, sort of, the embankment. And I went up like this and I could feel it. Snap, 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 how I broke left, everything. No, it doesn't hurt, believe me. I'm not heroic. It doesn't hurt, only later.
What do you think you could have achieved at ATS had someone like Robin Herd stayed with the team?
Well, it would have been a complete different car because we had this Penske car, which would have been a good car, and so on. So we could have made something more out of that one than later this chassis, which then Günther Schmidt designed and things like that. He changed the whole setup, and he always had, every other race he came with a new wing, and he said, this one, a new radiator setting that was sitting on the side awkwardly. You've probably seen some pictures. I mean, it looked so daft that you can hardly believe that somebody did that. But that's the way it was. So no, I wanted to go anywhere already. So it was after Zandvoort. I think after Zandvoort we went testing, yeah. And that was it. Finished for the season. And then later I drove again the first test kilometers with the arrows in Silverstone. And it was like nothing had happened. You sit in it, you drive it, and you feel good, the car is nice.
And did that accident with the ATS slow you down in any way?
I don't think so, no. I don't think so, because I knew what happened. I knew why it happened, so I had no fear. It didn't bother me. It was the accident you always wait to happen, and that's a strange thing, because you always think, one day I'm going to have an accident. I hope it ends up good enough. So you walk away again, you can get back in the car and drive again. You're not paralyzed, or you're not really badly injured and things like that. And I was badly injured, all right, but I had no problems physically and so on. So I drove again, and it didn't bother me. I mean, I sound like a twerp when I say that, sort of, they're saying it can't be right, but it's exactly what happened. I drove and I enjoyed the car again. I enjoyed driving, and it was good. I had good races still.
Yeah. And of course, Patrese was your teammate at Arrows. Ironically, really, by that time, he wasn't a friend of James Hunt, was he? But how quick was Patrese? What do you feel he learnt from you? Because by this time, you were experienced and he was new. He was almost a rookie.
He was, yeah, absolutely. And it was quite funny. He was usually quicker than me in practice, qualifying. But I could see him in front of me, or maybe one more row ahead. And I always overtook him in the race. And he always had some crash with somebody and so on. He finished very few races. And I said, Riccardo, let's do something different. said, don't overtake. Number one, do not overtake anybody unless it's very clear cut, and don't take any risks. Don't just focus on finishing. Focus only on finishing, and you will be in the points. I said, you're quick, damn it, but you can't always crash, and this is total nonsense. I said, just stay away from any sort of, doubtful situations. Just focus on finishing. And he did, and he finished in the points. I said, and Riccardo? He said, you were right. Jochen, you were right. It's much better like this. I said, yes, of course.
I can hear him saying that, yeah. And then, Jochen, you sit out 81, and I do want to just ask you briefly about 82, because that March, was it the worst car you ever raced in Formula One?
No. This was, undeniably ATS. ATS actually went for, it should have been APS, all parts. So obviously, that's what people wrote. They wrote me a letter. Said, alle Teile, same thing, and so on. So this was the car. No, the March was, with Newey, being quite full of himself, but he was a good designer.
Can I take you back to the start of the year? Because you're an intelligent guy, and I'd love to get your take on the drivers' strike in South Africa.
That was quite funny, actually. I liked it. We had this sort of misgivings about the wording of our contracts with Formula One license conditions. Formula One license. We were not allowed to say anything bad about anybody. Of course, I could see that, because it's bitching around doesn't help usually. But they said you cannot sue, even if there was a deliberate mistake by whoever, Goodyear or the teams or whatever, you cannot sue them and things like that. So all these sort of stipulations we had in our contracts, and they said, we won't sign that. Then no way, no, we won't do that. We go on strike. And I said, guys, we're in South Africa. What do you want to strike for? We cannot make the thing change here. We cannot. If we think we can, we are crazy. We have to do it at home. We need good lawyers, you need good, and so on and so on. And then we can probably do something, but not down here. We're here, let's race. And then we go home and see.
So you were trying to be the voice of reason?
Yeah, I tried to be. I tried very much to be, and so on, because our strike was ridiculous. Now, my first wife was a South African, and then my girlfriend still. And we went to her place. Her father was a doctor in Brakpan, which was about 45 minutes away, to the south of Johannesburg. And, Kyalami was lying east of Johannesburg. So all these guys jumped in a bus, but I had gone already, so I wasn't aware of it. They jumped in a bus and they went to some faraway hotel and so on, which was all kept very secret. And very few journalists were allowed to know where they were and so on. And so there they went in hiding. So I got there in the morning, coming from Brakpan. We had to warm up in the morning and so on. And I looked and nobody here. I said, what's wrong? Where are the guys? And then they explained. They said, they've gone off with all the mechanics and the team chiefs. I said, they went off yesterday with the bus and they're in some hotel. I said, bollocks. I said, I'm driving. I called my guys and I said, get the car ready. I'm driving anyway.
Were you ostracized from the group? Did the other drivers look very poorly on what you've done? Did they wish that you'd been with them and shown some solidarity with them?
Yeah, but I don't think I was the only one. I think some guys were also shying away from it. But anyway, so I drove. And then Bernie came along and he said, who's driving? I said, Mass. I said, oh, good boy. This sort of thing. And I drove. And as soon as I did, they came from everywhere, jumped in their cars and all drove. And afterwards they had some words, Nicky, and they said, but, you just have to stick with us. I said, come on, it's nonsense. Why don't you guys stick with me? Because it was crap to trying to call a strike here in South Africa. Forget it. I feel not particularly proud about it or whatever, but it was just, I stuck to my convictions, didn't feel it was right, so I did the opposite.
Well, Jochen, let's talk about Michael Schumacher, because he's been in the news quite a lot recently, with Lewis Hamilton beating his win record and his son Mick on the verge of making the step up to Formula One. Given that you helped shape Michael in the early years when you were his teammate at Mercedes, can you tell us what stood out about him?
Well, Michael was a very meticulous driver, and he was actually very, it was a workaholic if it comes to setting up cars and things like that, which was for us older guys, don't forget I'm older than his father. So, it was sometimes quite annoying in a nice way, if he sat around still at 10 at night saying, we could maybe try this, try that. And I said, leave the damn thing alone. The car is nice as it is. Don't change too much. No, he said, but it could be quicker. It could be here or there, and so on. So that's how he was, really. But he was forever proving his point. And that was the annoying part for us older ones. He actually came up with a proof that his ideas worked, and so on. So that was sometimes quite frustrating for us. But, I also knew, of course, that I was nearing, a retirement age, and so on. So I was quite happy if I could sometimes be up to similar speeds to Michael. He was not always quicker, but usually he was, of course, but not always. And if it wasn't, he came to me and he said, "Why are you faster than me?" And I said, "Michael, I think it's mainly because I'm stronger than you." So, it's the cars, the C9s or C11, Sauber Mercedes were sometimes quite hard to drive, especially with the tires we were on at the time. The Michelin tires were sometimes in a certain corners, certain type of corners, with a lot of depression load on them. The steering became very heavy and so on. And I was obviously a bit stronger, so that helped me and so on. So and then he started to do a lot of, sport in order to get more muscles everywhere, which he did, of course.
So do you think you were the catalyst
Yeah.
for him becoming, him sort of moving the bar from a fitness point of view?
Mm. Yeah, of course, he always looked, and what we did, the older ones, or what I did specifically, because we were in the same team. So he looked at me and he saw me as a sort of a, example to the good and the bad. Sometimes he said, no, he does that wrong. And sometimes, I could learn from that, and this sort of thing. But he was very strong in his, in his attitudes, and very strong in his beliefs, what would work for him and so on. So quite remarkable.
So a very strong work ethic. How did he compare to the other Mercedes junior drivers of the time, Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Karl Wendlinger?
Karl Wendlinger was a little more laid back, and not that intentionally so. He wanted to be, of course, as quick as everybody, and but it took him a bit longer to get there. So sometimes he was, let's say, the less spontaneously fast driver in the team. He was quick, of course, but it took him a bit longer to work on it, and so on and so on. So, Michael was quick, and Frentzen, in the beginning, he was easy going, and he was very fast, but he was very undisciplined. And so therefore he signed contracts right, left and center, which was very difficult for his then later manager, which he luckily got finally to get it all straightened and so on. So he didn't drive for Mercedes.
I remember reading reports at the time that Frentzen was actually the most naturally talented of those three. Would you agree with that?
He seemed the most spontaneously fast guy, so very natural talent. He didn't work hard enough. If it was good, he said, "It's good," and he walked away. It was a bit like me, sort of a lot of natural talent, but not too much work behind it. So sometimes that's a handicap. I think I worked a bit better than Frentzen perhaps, but I got him into Williams, to the Williams team. And Frank called me up and he said, "Well, Jochen, I think the boy you got us there, he's really good." I said, "But you've got to keep him by the scruff of his neck. Otherwise, he's not disciplined enough, and he will not do what you want him to do. He needs a rigid discipline from the outside," and so on. And history proved me right. he should have won a lot more races, really, in the team, because I know he was quick, but he didn't. It didn't happen because he was elsewhere in his mind, which is a pity.
It's fascinating, isn't it? When you say you got him into Williams, did you act as his manager?
No, not really, no. But I was, very friendly with Frank Williams, and I wanted, of course, Frentzen to be in a good team too. So I suggested it to Frank, and he looked at him and so on, and in testing, and then he agreed. He said he's quick, and so on. So it was one of these things. That's why later, Frank Williams, much later in the 90s, he said, he called me up and he said, would you like to do 20 laps in my car?
Which car was that?
It was Prost car, it was 95 on the championship and so on in Le Castellet, which is not so far from here. And I said, I'd love to. Anyway, so I did drive and the car was fantastic and I was quick. I was very quick in my 20 laps. This was 12 years, nearly 13 years out of Formula One. Within 2 or 3 laps, I was going flat out with the Williams. I was doing senior flat, which was speed 347 kilometers. I have to be meticulous with that. 347.
Yes, you've got a great memory.
With Sauber Mercedes, the 291, we did 352. So that means it was even quicker. So I was quite in tune with the track.
How did you find all the driver aids in the FW15? That it had traction control, it had a semi-automatic gearbox, it had active suspension.
I sat in the car quite bewildered. I mean, finally, first I had to fit in. This was already difficult because I'm a little chunkier than most guys today. And I was then. So we had to take the seat out, the fire extinguisher and all sorts of things for me in order to get in. And I almost felt claustrophobic. So I was happy. I came in once and I said, I had a little bit of understeer, some part of the track. I was quite exhausted already after 10 laps. Got a bit of an understeer, hoping they would have to do something in the back of the car, to give me a breather of 30 seconds or whatever. Nope, he just turned a little button on the dash and he said, okay, go. So I did go again. And but I thought the car, with all the help it had, the electronics and so on, it was fantastic to drive. It was easy to drive. I said, with that car, you can only become world champion. Seriously, the car was so nice. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous from the effort, or the let's say, the non-existing effort to drive it. It was just fast, wonderful. It felt good. Everything was perfect. Michael called me up later and he said, I'm driving for Williams next year. I said, fantastic. He said, Michael, really good. Because I liked Frank a lot and I really wanted him to have the best driver and da. But for Michael, I said, listen, whatever you win now, it's the car. It's not you. The car is too good. You need, let's say, Ferrari, get it out of the trough where it is in, pull it out and make them champions again. You will be king of Italy. He said, I don't know. And he called me up a month later and he said, I'm going to Ferrari. I said, well done. Of course I felt sorry on the way for Frank, but, these championships, if you have a very superior car, of course, have less weight than if you make Ferrari world champions again.
Hang on, I need to stop you there, Jochen. So there was a chance that Michael Schumacher could have raced for Williams in the mid-90s?
Of course, he wanted to. Had I sort of approved it, if you like, had I said, great idea, super, do it, he would have done it, yes.
Jochen is just the latest big name from F1's history that we've heard from on Beyond the Grid. On this show, we love digging into stories from the sport's past. But new stories are being created every race weekend, and you can hear them all on the F1 Paddock Pass podcast. F1 Paddock Pass is the place to hear the 2020 drivers full of emotion and adrenaline just minutes after climbing from their cars. Episodes are free to listen to and come out exclusively on Spotify 3 times every race week, and you don't need a premium account to listen to them. On Thursdays, Will Buxton previews the weekend's action, getting the drivers' views on F1's hottest issues. After qualifying on Saturday, the drivers relive the fight to be fastest. We talk to the star performers up and down the grid, the pole sitter, and look ahead to the race itself. Then on Sunday, minutes after crossing the finish line, the race winner celebrates with F1 Paddock Pass. Plus surprise podium finishers, the point scorers, the happy and the heartbroken after every Grand Prix. It's your complete race weekend audio guide. Listen to F1 Paddock Pass for free, no need for a premium account, on Thursdays, Saturdays and Sundays of every race week, only on Spotify. And hit the follow button for the fastest way to get every episode. Jochen, it's a fascinating relationship that Michael had with you. It seems that it was quite paternal. He looked at you as his racing father. Is that fair?
In a way, I was. He looked at me, and I was older than his dad. So, it made quite an impact, the way he sort of looked at me, naturally. In the interviews, he said, it was always nice to be with me, to listen to me, and da-da-da-da. And so on. Of course, he was friendly. But he also knew where he had the edge on me by a long shot. But he also felt that he could learn something. And that's nice, And that's basically what my job was with him. Nobody expected me to be quicker than Michael. Just to be a good example for him in a team like Mercedes or whatever and so on. So it's basically just that role which needs a bit of consideration as well as a young driver. Later when he suddenly came up, after his years with Ferrari, and then he sort of sat in his house and he did a lot of exercises and this and that, and then he wanted to do motorcycles, which he had never done in his life. I said, Michael, don't do it. He called me up and said, I'm going to race motorbikes. I said, but Michael, why do you believe you can do that? You've never done it before. And I knew how he drove and so on, so how he rode a bike. And it was good road use, but not more than that. It's different. If you race bikes, damn it, this is a very intense game. And so I said, don't do it. And of course, then he had Mick Doohan staying with him as a tutor, if you like. And Mick tried to help. And finally, I said, after it didn't go that well, obviously, during the season. So I said to Mick, and what do you think? He said, I've given up. I've moved out. I can't do it anymore. I cannot do it anymore. He said, he is totally resistant to any suggestions I make or all the other guys. Because all the Formula One guys were glued to the television screen on the race days, all the Americans and all that, because they were curious to see how he does. And we often met them in Goodwood, many of them. And I said, what do you think? And he said, forget it. I said, it's forever and so on. He's forever in the wrong place or the wrong, it's too early, too late in the corner and too low down and God knows what. Sure, because it's something, you're not born with and you haven't done it as a young kid and so on. So you can never gain that edge later. You cannot. And so on. So he paid quite a price for that too. And then he drove again Mercedes, giving him the 8th championship. I'm sarcastic now. But of course, I said, Michael, don't do it. Don't do it. They just are happily taking your 7 championships and put them on their banners and say, here we have the big champion. Sure, fair enough. But they didn't give it to you. And they can't. They don't have the car, and so on and so on. But anyway, I did it, and we know the outcome.
Hindsight's 2020. Is there anything you do differently in your Formula One career?
Yes, I think I would. With hindsight, naturally I would. I would definitely think whether I would drive for 30s in the beginning, when you had the chance getting into a turn. This was, of course, don't forget it was the weekend when Sever died, in Watkins Glen. When Tyrrell came to me on the golf course and he said, so can we talk about next year and so on? So I looked at him and I thought, no, I don't think we can, not because of the accident, not because of this and that, just because of the agreement I had. So then he said, oh no, that we can't, and so on. But this was something I would have perhaps insisted more, to get out of 30s contractual conditions or situation and try to drive for Tyrrell. I think I could have done that had I been more forceful. But it was always like that with me. I was a bit too easy.
What was the greatest win of your career?
Look, I mean, you look all the attempts in Le Mans, where I was unlucky sometimes with the Porsche. I mean, don't forget, I didn't drive with Jackie Ickx in Le Mans because Derek Bell drove, but only because I didn't want to drive at all. I had in my contract not to drive Le Mans because I had these misgivings about the safety of the circuit, the sort of ignorant behavior of the automobile club, the West, whatever, and so on. The pits were terrible. The safety was terrible. The guardrails were not mounted properly. I mean, they keeled over when you hit them. Then you flew into the woods. And we had every race, we had a guy killed at Marshall's. So that's why I thought, this is ridiculous, damn it. Why must we do that? We can do it better. And if they just would make a triple tire guardrail, mount them better in the soil, and so on and then it would be better, but they didn't do it, and so on. So that's why in my Porsche contract was always no Le Mans. But they said you have to be there as a reserve driver, just in case. That's what I was a few times. Otherwise, I would have won with Jackie as many races as Derek, and so on, or as Jackie, so. But I didn't do it out of principal reasons. So I had my reasons for myself why I did do certain things or why I didn't do certain things. And it was just that. And then later, I drove with Stefan Belloff, who were leading. And then something silly went on the motor, gaskets dissolved or whatever. And, she wouldn't start anymore on Sunday afternoon, just after lunch. And things like that. So I should have won Le Mans a few times, but, I won it eventually with the Mercedes, and it was great, and in 88 already, but that's another story. I opted for not driving, or let's say I convinced the team not to tempt fate and drive the race because we had no control over the tire stability. That means they were flexing too much. We had too much downforce, and the tires were working too much. So the sidewalls broke. And then, of course, you do 350, 80, 400 nearly. I mean, what sort of risk is that? The first attempt back in Le Mans, for Mercedes, and then we had a big accident. I said, how crazy would that be? So I said, let's pack up and go home and we test more. And then we know. So in 89, we did that. I did a lot of testing in Clermont-Ferrand. We reduced the downforce, under the benevolent guys of the Michelin engineers, Pascal Petit. And he said, Jochen, you must reduce the downforce. I said, but, why don't you just build a different tire, damn it, a stiffer one. Jochen, c'est pas ça. The downforce is too much and the tire is... I said, anyway. So we were slow in the slow corners. The Porsche were all over us, but they couldn't get past, luckily, because I was so much quicker on the straight. And that's why we won the race. But, we did what? Eventually we did 422, which is quick on the French country road. It's a good speed.
Yeah, that's mad. Who was the best teammate you ever had in sports cars, the most talented?
No, Jackie Ickx was very good, and he was a very solid long-distance driver, and we got on very well. So we had pretty much the same idea about setting up cars, so that was nice. Of course, in the Porsche we had, it was with Jackie all the time. And of course, occasionally when I drove with Stefan Belloff, who was very quick, with Derek Bell, I rarely ever drove Vern Chupin and so on. So it was Jackie basically, who was the best teammate you could wish for. He was solid and he was reliable. He didn't make mistakes and so on. And of course, we were a solid team. It worked well. So that's why, the fastest would have been perhaps Stefan Belloff at the time, but, he raced too briefly with us. And then he drove the Walter Brun car because he had other plans in Formula One and God knows what, and so on. So he became a bit reckless. He was one of these young guys who couldn't die. They thought they'd get away with everything. And that was a pity. how much we would love. Often we had this meetings with a lot of young guys standing and saying, Jackie Ickx is at fault with a bad accident in Spa with Stefan Belloff and so on. They said, no, he's not. Absolutely not. Jackie had nothing to do with it. He was just driving his lane, and Stefan wanted to overtake him on the outside. You can't do that in the ocean, certainly not Jackie, and so on. So it was just one of these reckless maneuvers which Stefan was capable of doing. And, it was a great shame. We had at Nürburgring when he was leading, because, in the 1,000 kilometers, I was lying second, and I started to fly the Pflanzgarten because when the side pods lost a little bit of downforce, then the car got a bit light, and then you start taking off. And then I landed nicely, and so I went back to the pits, and we had a pit stop, and Stefan the same time. So I said, be careful, Stefan, in the back. If that is happening to your car, I think you take off there quite easily. He said, ha, ha, ha. He said, that's only for you, not for me, this sort of thing. First lap out, he went flying big time, wrecked the car completely. So I said, and it didn't hurt himself, luckily. So I said, Stefan, and? He said, yeah, but, he said, you were right, but, it's, shouldn't happen. I said, yeah, exactly. This sort of thing. And Stefan was very, very, let's say, confident that nothing could happen like that. Great shame.
Fascinating insight into someone like him. Also, it was an odd time, wasn't it? Because particularly in the 70s, you were racing sports cars, teammates with some of these people, and then the next weekend, you'd be racing against them as rivals in Formula One.
Yeah, but it was great. It was nice to have good rivals. And so,
rivals who you knew well, I guess.
No. But this is normal. I mean, you race, and you know what your car can do, and you know what his car might be able to do, and so on. So it was never any particular worry. You looked at the other guy in the car. Sometimes they look back, and you wave quickly, and so on. It happened. It was not such a tense existence, as you have later, perhaps. Now the cars are so quick that you can't even, you don't have much room to look around and wave at somebody. Forget it. You're focused on your line with this sort of half steering wheel you have, and so on. So we had much more time to be friendly with each other, even when you were in competition. I waved at Nicky, which was with the arrows, with the A2, fantastic car, A3. It's very nice. And first lap, Buenos Aires, Nicky led, and I overtook him. My car was good. I thought, great, fantastic. And I took him and I waved at him, and he looked at me and he shook his head. We passed him. Then we got to the infield and the road broke up. But, I should have known that because we've done that in the formation lap already. We had seen it. So I got off the pedal and I just hooked on the catch fencing and I broke my nose. So I had to pit and I finished seventh finally. And it was me. That was silly me. Sort of, there's no time to look around already then. But, you did anyway. But, so you make these mistakes. And that's something, of course, with hindsight now, I think you've been dumb. Just focus more on it and don't do things. Andretti, my claim to fame, Brazil. Talking about Brazil again. Coming down, same thing. I overtook him. He was in a Lotus. And my McLaren was quick and the engine was good. And I came down, overtook him, after the double left-hander and then this long downhill section. And then the bottom, you have this tightish left-hander coming up. But I liked the track and I was quick there. I was quick there too, but a bit too deep. And the same thing, road broke up and I spun off and I hit the Armco. And on that weekend in Brazil, they introduced a speed limit of 100 kilometers. And they're the outlying borders of the country of Brazil with the Atlantic coast as a racetrack. And I said, on this racetrack, only 100 kilometers. And if you go faster, this will happen to you. And that was me. For 10 years I shouted with my claim to fame in Brazil. Ridiculous.
Oh, what a great story. Well,
No.
Jochen, it's been completely wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. It's been fascinating.
No, look, I mean, it's a life, you live, and it's a life you live intensely, the ups and downs, the highs and the lows, and you can be grateful for it, and you have certain misgivings about things you did or what happened to you and so on, but it's basically, you can only blame yourself at the end and so on. And then with the blaming, it's such a thing, you don't want to blame yourself all the time. It's sometimes sorts of bad luck. Sometimes it just doesn't add up to a more successful race life. But, I was very successful with the sports cars, and with the touring cars, and with the this and that. It was fantastic. And all the accidents I had were not that many, but yet some big ones. I survived without any particular following pains except my knee. But so that's great. That's something you have to be very grateful for. I drove trucks, and I drove the IROC in the States. I drove IndyCar quite often. Did all the testing for all the development work for Porsche, and so on and so on. So I drove all these different machines, which I'm very thankful for that I could do it. And, I was quick in all of them. I think if you are open to all that and don't overdo it, try to force it too much, you can have so much fun in life.
What an illuminating chat. There are way too many highlights for me to list here, but how good was he on the serious side of Michael Schumacher, or the safety-conscious Emerson Fittipaldi, and the playboy James Hunt? Another thing I really enjoyed was the insight he gave us into his racing brain, how he rationalised the decisions he made, be it not signing for Tyrrell in 1974 or Williams in 1979, and why he discouraged Schumacher from signing for Williams. Jochen, I loved our chat. Many thanks for your time. It was great to catch up. Now, before we go, there's just time to take a dive into the virtual mailbag to see what you've been saying about the show. And my chat with Eric Boulier last week has generated a bit of debate. Nicholas Marsh got in touch to say this: as I listened to this while on the rowing machine in the gym, I was hoping for the McLaren years in detail. He was not giving much away on this or many other areas. And I agree with you, Nicholas. Eric was tight-lipped about some things, and let's hope he writes a book one day and tells all of the unspoken stories. Sarah Merritt gave us a nice shout-out when she tweeted this: really enjoyed listening to this podcast. I chatted with Eric many times at testing and very much miss seeing him at races, but I can see how he's been keeping himself busy. Give it a listen. Well, thanks for the call to arms, Sarah, and there's no doubting that Eric is one of the nicest guys in Formula One. He has time for everybody. And Gorgon to Playa Grinch said this. I hope I pronounced your name right, by the way. Absolutely loved the podcast of Eric. Loved his honest views about giving drivers their space and doing their own thing alongside Formula One. It's a real good listen. Well, glad you enjoyed it, Gorgon to Playa. Eric is an absolute master at getting the best out of drivers, and I loved his thoughts on Romain Grosjean in particular. I'm afraid that's all we got time for this week. As ever, please rate and review us if you've got time. We really appreciate it. And if you want to send me a message, I'm at Tom Clarkson F1 on Twitter, or you can use the hashtag F1BeyondTheGrid. Thanks for listening. Beyond the Grid is produced by F1 in association with Audio Boom. Until next time, keep it flat out.